Okay, I'm going to call the March 16th meeting of the Escondido Historic Preservation Commission to order. If you'll join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, can we have the roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Hanlon,
Present.
Commissioner Walker,
Present.
Chair Span,
Present.
Chair Corral,
Present.
Commissioner Suarez Avila.
Present.
Okay. Okay, approval of the minutes. Has everybody read the minutes?
Move to approve.
It's moved.
I'll move to approve.
Oh, it's been moved. Do you want to second it, Marion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Okay, all in favor? Hand
Aye.
vote? Hand vote?
Hand vote if you approve the minutes. You good?
Okay. Minutes are approved. Oral communication. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak about something that's not on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, we're going to go right to the public hearing. Current business, the case number PL 230035. It's a request for a 293 square foot expansion of an existing home.
There we go. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alex Rangel, Development Technician for the Planning Division, and I'll be presenting item H1, PL 230035, a design review for a residential addition of the property within the old Escondido neighborhood. The project location is at 139 West 9th Avenue. And as you can see with this attachments 1 and attachments 2 in your agenda packets, you'll see existing site photographs for the property in question. Now, on the presentation that we have right here, these are the front elevation side photographs of the property, including the view from the public right-of-way, the street. Next slide here, we have the side elevations of the existing property as they are. And this final slide here is the rear elevations, including the deck that is currently within the existing property. The project site itself is approximately 7,000 square feet, located at, again, 139 West 9th Avenue. The site is located within the old Escondido's neighborhood. However, it is not listed on the city's local register, nor is it identified on the city's historic resources inventory. The original construction was completed in 1955, according to the city of Escondido's available permit records. The project itself involves an addition of a 290 square foot addition to the 1,268 square foot single family residence. 195 square feet will be added to the front of the house to accommodate an expansion of the existing bedroom and living room, and 95 square feet will be added to the kitchen and dining room at the rear of the house. The project also includes a 675 square foot interior remodel of the home, and the removal, reconstruction, and expansion of a rear patio deck at the rear of the home. The colors and materials of the proposed addition would match the existing color materials to the furthest extent possible. In the following signs, we have the floor plans, which show you the existing elements of the floor plan as well as the proposed changes to the addition, including the deck expansion at the bottom here. The existing versus the proposed elevation plans, which you can see as well in attachment 3 of your packets. And some of the material samples that are located throughout attachments 3 and 4 in your packets right here. Staff has concluded a historical analysis in the proposed addition, the details of which can be seen within the staff reports that were provided for you in your agenda packets. Of note that we'd like to bring up is that one element of the addition is street forward and front facing, which means that it would obviously be viewed from public right of way. However, there is a significant screening with the existing fencing that is on the property as it is. And the staff's recommendation to the Historic Preservation Commission to conduct design review of the project and recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the Director of Development Services. Thank you, commissioners, staff, and I believe I've been told the homeowner should be present as well. No? Just staff.
Thank you.
Available for any further questions that you have for the project.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions of staff? See none. Thank you. Does anybody in the audience want to talk about this item in any way? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on that. Just my overthought, I've driven by that. I drive by it just about every day, and I really took a look at it today, and I don't really see it as being it's a contributor for sure, but I don't think that these changes are going to diminish the neighborhood in any way. These are great pictures to put in here too, because it's going to improve the neighborhood, whatever they do there. So I have no problem with this. Anybody else? Oh, I did have one question. I can't really tell, are these vinyl windows or are they wood windows?
From the materials that I was provided, they were shown to be wood windows. Unfortunately, the material listing on the plans provided did not list that. However, I spoke with the applicant himself, and they said they would be wood.
Okay, I just wondered where we stood as far as enforcing the wood windows in the district. Thank you.
Are the wood windows even period correct for 55 home?
Well, I don't really see that. What I was going to say is if you're not going to require wood windows, whatever is in the rest of the house, I would just as soon see that carried through instead of to modify it.
Certainly, yeah.
I don't have any issue with it. I think it's going to greatly enhance the way the house looks. It looks like they're going to fix that non-permitted addition thing on the front of it and make it look like it's congruent with the rest of the design, so that's great.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve it.
Okay,
Commissioner Henry.
second? Okay, motion and second, all in favor? 5 yes votes, so that
Easy peasy.
is
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good day.
our second item is case number PL 220599, a request for 659 square foot addition on Fifth Avenue.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ivan Flores, and I'm an Associate Planner with the Planning Division, and I will be presenting on item H2, which is a design review for a 659 square foot addition, including a new second story and second story deck, along with an interior remodel of an existing one-story single-family residence. The project is located at 650 East 5th Avenue in the R16 zoning district. It's located between South Fig Street and South Grape Street, as you can see on this aerial attachment. This view is a view of the north elevation, so this is what you would be seeing if you were on Fifth Avenue. There's a significant grade change from the street down towards the alley. It's about a 30-foot drop off from the street to the alleyway, and we'll see photos from the rear in the next photo. So this photo is taken from the alleyway. The second story addition would be above the garage approximately. But like I said, there's a very steep grade change in from the street to the alleyway. The site is approximately 8,625 square feet and is located within the old Escondido neighborhood district. According to city records, it was built in 1999. The project site itself is not located on the city's local register or is identified on the city's historic resource inventory. As you can see from the site plan, the grade change from the front from the front of the house on Fifth Avenue into the alley is about 30 feet. And we'll be able to see kind of the change in elevation from the renderings later. So the project does include an interior remodel, and as you can see, so they intend to demo some of the kitchen area on the first floor to accommodate the addition and the remodel, which we'll be able to see on the next slide. So here you see the remodeled deck on the first floor and the remodeled kitchen. And on the slide, on the photo next to it, is the second floor with the new deck and the what appears to be a master bedroom and a bathroom and a closet. So as you can see, the second story addition would be noticeable from the right of way off of East 5th Avenue. However, our design guidelines do recommend second story additions be stepped back from the front. So it would appear to be consistent with that. It's matching the same roof pitch design and essentially the same roof pitch in terms of sloped, how the roof pitch is sloped. So here you can see that there's a substantial change in grade as you go towards the alleyway. Our code requires that we measure from the average of the highest and the lowest point of the lot. And so from the average grade, it's about 27 feet in height. If you were to measure it from the lowest grade adjacent to the garage, it would be approximately 34 feet. But other than that, it is consistent with the requirements for building height in that zoning district. And here's the rear elevation from the alley. The material consists of stucco troweling to match the existing texture, known as light lace texture. The deck railing will be painted red curry, and all new windows will be wood and painted to match the existing. And you can see an example of the wood that they're proposing in this image. The staff report contains a more detailed analysis, but in summary, the addition will be consistent with the design guidelines for homeowners of historic resources. The property itself isn't historic. However, even non-historic properties in the OEN are expected to comply with them. That will conclude staff presentation, and I believe the applicant is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioners, comments, staff?
What do you think?
I've seen none, I thank you. Does anybody in the audience want to speak on this in any way? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I personally think it's a great project. It's an excellent contributor to this historic district. I think the architecture in the original house, it's surprising that it's only as young as it is. I thought it was older than that. To be honest, I drove by it 3 times before I could even find it, which I think we need to work on public addresses being visible at some point. I went up and down that block, and there's not an address I could find until you really look for them. But I think it's a great project, and I have no problems with it. I think it's a great use of that hill.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a lot of 1999 houses in the OEN come before us, so it's just a matter of just trying to make sure it fits within the guidelines of the neighborhood, right? Like, we don't really have purview over whether or not another story can be added because it's within the, so we're really just looking at paint schemes and making sure it's correct, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it looks great. I think you guys did a great job.
I think they're proposing quality materials. Okay.
Anybody else? Anything else? No? Motion, anybody?
Motion
Motion to approve as submitted?
and second?
Second.
And seconded, okay. All in favor? 5 yes votes. So PL 220599 is approved. We'll go on to number 3, PL 230106. Request to remove an accessory structure.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is similar to the project we brought at the last January meeting. So we have received a request from the property owner at 227 South Maple Street to essentially demolish an accessory structure located in the rear. The request today is a determination of significance for an accessory structure located on a property that's listed on the city's local register and with the executed Mills Act agreement. The property is located at 227 South Maple Street. As you can see here from the aerial, it's bounded by West 2nd Avenue and West 3rd Avenue. As stated earlier, the property does have a Mills Act contract, which has gone to improvements to the structure itself. It's no longer a residential use. It was converted to a professional office use, from our understanding, when the Mills Act contract was executed. Some of those improvements were to make it comply with building code requirements and make improvements to the outside of the structure. The project site is approximately 6,500 square feet. It's not located within the old Escondido neighborhood. The property itself was identified as significant. So the primary structure on the property was analyzed when it was going through the historic resource inventory, and then when they prepared the Department of Parks and Recreation form 523. So on August 7, 2007, the Historic Preservation Commission voted to list the primary structure on the property, which I showed in the earlier photo, on the local register of historic places as resource number 260, and it has an executed Mills Act contract. According to the Sanborn maps, the structure in question was constructed in the early 1900s. There was an adjacent outhouse, that's how it was identified, that was demolished to provide sewer service to one of the neighboring properties. Based off of the research that was done for the Department of Parks and Recreation form and the historic resource inventory, they weren't able to find any additional information on this structure in question. It does meet the criteria to be listed because it is older than 50 years old. Meets that criteria. But the structure itself wasn't analyzed in terms of architectural significance, association with somebody of importance in the city's history. So here's an additional photo. So the primary structure on the site was identified as being a simple Victorian farmhouse. There were alterations that were made to the property over time that included Craftsman-like features. But even with those features, it was still met the criteria to be designated on the city's local register. As stated earlier, the Sanborn maps identify this structure, the accessory structure, as an outhouse. And one of them was demolished to provide sewer service to a neighboring property. So staff is requesting that the Historic Preservation Commission determine that this accessory structure would not qualify for listing on the city's local register. Based on the information outlined in the DPR form and the historic resource inventory, it is unlikely that any additional research would provide information on the subject structure that would warrant it to be listed on the city's local register itself. Staff recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission determine that the accessory structure located at 227 South Maple Street is not significant and not eligible to be listed on the city's local register of historic places. I would also like to note that the Mills Act contract that was executed does not include any improvements to this accessory structure. And that will conclude staff's presentation, and I believe the property owner is here.
Does anybody have any questions about this? I think it's pretty cut and dried. Thank you so much. And did you have a question? No. Okay.
I was agreeing with you.
No. I'd love to see you come up to the podium, Mr. McQueen.
My name is Bob McQueen. My wife and I own the buildings. In 2005 or 6, we bought it from the older guy who owned it. His name was Guy. And it was our hope. We knew the house had a lot of history, and we weren't sure about this little thing. So it's exactly the way it looked when we bought it, basically, except the windows were in it. Over time, though, the streets have gotten rough, and we spent a lot of time and effort fixing break-ins. We discovered last time it was broken into with any significance, we had it stripped out, and the framing reveals it was only a garage or a carriage structure. It's really an attractive nuisance, and we'd love to take it down, make parking for the tenants. Any questions? I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Does anybody else in the audience wish to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that public hearing. I think this is pretty easy. I drove through there again today and thought, oh, it'd be wonderful to see this gone, to be honest with you. Okay, any other comments?
No, my only comment or wonder was what were they planning to do something else, but you just answered that with have extra parking for people. Oh, no, you're fine. No.
Okay,
Motion to approve?
it's motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion passes. Staff's recommendation.
Start tearing it down.
Yeah, it's probably half down now.
Yeah, just push it.
Okay, we'll move on to the next case. It's actually it's got three case numbers on it, PL 220396, 97, and 98. It's a non-emergency demolition permit for the structure at Mission and Center City.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Jay Paul, Senior Planner. It's been a while since I've been in front of the Historic Preservation Commission. So the item on the agenda today is information only. We want to bring this to you with a significant enough time so you have a chance to look at some of the background information. We will be coming back with a formal request for a non-emergency demolition permit that's required for the Historic Preservation Commission to review and provide a recommendation to the City Council regarding the required findings and whether all the procedures and whether it's appropriate for this structure to be demoed. And I'll give you a little bit of background on the structure. It was a purpose-built building in 1962, so it is 60 years old. It was a, sorry, there we go, sorry. On the corner here of Center City Parkway and Mission Avenue. 1962, purpose-built for Denny's. It's in the Googie style architecture. So I had to look in the analysis of what Googie style was. And that's kind of a futuristic, modernistic, post-World War II. Really, it focuses around that boomerang style roof design. And there's some other of that architectural style still in Escondido. The request is for a new In-N-Out and a coffee bean restaurant to be developed on the corner. They're currently going through the review process, which will require Planning Commission and Council approval, consideration and approval. Reason why it will require Council review is the demolition permit. The non-emergency demolition permit requires approval by the City Council. This includes a conditional use permit for the two drive-through restaurants and a subdivision map here. This is just an overview of the project. Because the building is over 50 years old and was not listed on the city's historic site survey or local register, historic analysis was prepared to determine its level of significance and whether it meets certain criteria for listing on the California Register or the city's register. The analysis concluded that it was a significant structure because of its architectural style, the Googie style, and also it met certain criteria for potential listings on the local register and the California Historic Register. So the findings of that analysis were that this project will require a mitigation for demolition. We also review it for compliance with CEQA and our city's historic ordinance. So a mitigated negative declaration is being prepared for the project to analyze its analysis, its historic impacts and potential mitigation for the project. To consider and approve a non-emergency demolition permit, the applicant, the city will have to review the project, and certain findings have to be made by the Historic Preservation Commission and ultimately the City Council. And the applicant is working on that analysis right now. There's certain procedures that have to be done and followed. One of them is to offer the structure up for an outside party to relocate very difficult for this type of structure. That was really meant for structures on raised foundations, but you still have to go through the process. And other criteria before we bring it to you. So we're not looking for a recommendation tonight or really get into the weeds on this project. Don't want you to have debate on whether you would recommend approval or not. That's for a future date. So basically, we're here to provide that initial information. The historic study was provided on the city's website, and you would have access. You have access to that. Just here to answer any questions you might have about the project and the process, but really information only. We will be coming back for a noticed public hearing before the Historic Preservation Commission for a final recommendation for City Council. That concludes staff's presentation.
I just have one question. Could you go back to the site map, that one right there? The area in between what I would think would be the In-N-Out and the coffee shop, that parking lot, would that be part of these two projects?
Yes. That parking lot will serve the In-N-Out. As you've seen, In-N-Outs have a lot of queuing and a lot of customer demand.
I think we all are aware of that.
Yes.
So that won't have anything to do with the hotel behind it?
No, they'll be separate from the hotel.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? So we don't have, this is just preparing us for the next
I want to
step.
prepare you, and if you had some basic questions, otherwise we will be coming back.
Thank you. And, go ahead.
I have a quick question, but maybe this is probably even just way general, but in circumstances like this, like you have this building that is interesting, and I guess like for example, the Ritz building downtown, they did such a good job of like kind of keeping in those elements that it was first built in, but it's brand new. Do you ever, like if you're taking down a building like this, do you ever require or kind of ask, could you add some of these elements in? Like, could you put some Googie elements into the design of your building? Since we're taking away this structure, would you put that back?
That's just a good question. It never hurts to do that. I did the Ritz project, and we had to do a non-emergency demolition permit for the corner building. I think
I remember.
Mr. Span remembers that one. The elements on doing that, because they were taking that companion building down, they wanted it to incorporate the elements, but not exactly match those elements. But yes, it can be considered.
It would be nice if they would be considered, but every In-N-Out looks the same.
It's corporate.
I know.
They do have some corporate direction, though. That drives a lot of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does anybody in the audience want to talk about this? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to our next project. Case number PL 230116, review of the Grape Day Master Plan.
Commissioner Span, other side. If I may, I just wanted to introduce our representatives for this. Danielle Lopez is our Assistant Director of Parks and Community Services. Did I get that right? Close enough? Thank you. And then the other folks are from the design team. I unfortunately don't have names, so do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name is Arash Izadi. I'm a principal with LPA. We're the design firm that's been engaged to assist the city with the master plan and aquatic facility project.
My name's Lindsay Dussault. I'm also with LPA, helping out with the aquatics and the Grape Day Master Plan.
So if we're ready, we'll roll.
Okay.
So we got a brief presentation prepared. It's a high level. We can get into any questions that you guys have or in any detail, but we've kept it relatively simple. We'll give you a little bit of an introduction, talk about what's happened to date and the schedule that we've been proceeding with, a little overview of the project, some GDP specific outreach summaries, and then talk about the master plan, and then turn it over to you for any questions that you may have. So just looking at the timeline a little bit, back in September of, and we'll apologize here, when things get converted out of our computers to other computers, sometimes the fonts get a little little wonky, so that's why you're seeing some of these things floating around a little bit. So we started the process back in September of last year. There's two processes. There's the master plan and then the aquatics facility. We're focusing specifically on the master plan component here. Started around September. Shortly thereafter, we had what we call an in-house staff workshop. This is where we met with various departments within the city to understand sort of the assumptions, the guiding principles, the ideas, the history, all of those things associated with what the city was envisioning for the project. From there, we had a series of meetings we call stakeholder interviews, and then as well as some focus group meetings. The stakeholder interviews are essentially one-on-one, where we've identified a series of people or representatives and interviewed them in typically 1-hour sessions, half-hour sessions, and talked to them about the project and their thoughts and feedback and opinions and anything else they want to share within that time frame. And then we met with a series of focus groups. The focus groups are usually small groups, as an example, the school district, the charter school, and so on. So these are smaller groups. We met with them, and the idea here is to engage a variety of different workshop strategies and opportunities, so we engage as many people, as a variety of people as possible. You're never going to capture everyone, but the more tools we provide, the more opportunity there is for feedback. So after those interviews and focus group meetings, we held our first community workshop. This is a citywide workshop that we've invited essentially anyone and anyone who wants to, everyone and anyone who wants to join. Shared the process with them, talked about the components of the existing master plan, the proposed master plan, and all of those pieces. Had a site awareness tour where we actually walked around the facility. Everyone got little workbooks and shared things like adjacencies, the existing conditions, the opportunities, all of those things that go with it. Gathered that data, and then did a SMS text survey, very similar to what you might get in an election. It went out to a broader service area. It's a randomized sampling, and it is statistically valid because of that. So it went out to several thousand people. We did get a series of responses back, took that information and added it to the other workshop results. And then held a second community workshop to, again, garner more feedback, share more of the process, and give the community additional opportunity to provide feedback. And then that brings us, in addition to that, we've had a series of 221 meetings as well with council. So that brings us to where we are today, meeting with you, and following this, there is the Planning Commission meeting and then the City Council meeting as well. So that's a brief history and timeline. When we start projects, we always try to understand the history and look back at the events and milestones of the area, of the city, of the site, all of those kinds of pieces, just to really understand the history and some of the ideas and things that occurred. And again, some of the fonts are screwing up a little bit of this, so apologies for that. This is the existing master plan. This was developed in 2015 by the city, not as part of this process that we're in now. It was developed in 2015. It identified all the different components and opportunities and options and all the things that reside within that. So this became really the template. One key piece here is that we are not creating a new master plan. This is simply an update to the existing master plan. So we're not rethinking everything. We're just updating and adding components that may be appropriate based on what's occurred since 2015 to now. Part of that master plan, and really a significant piece of this discussion tonight, is the existing program as it relates to the historical amenities within the site. You guys are very familiar with this, obviously, but looking at the history center, the barn, the blacksmith shop, and then some of the memorials, the educational opportunities, the murals, and all of those components. And then, as part of the process, what the city had, what the community identified, all of the things that influenced what we're doing, we've looked at a couple key components again as it relates to the historical piece of this. Looking at the street, or I believe it's called the Heritage Walk. is that correct? The Heritage Walk and the improvements to the Heritage Walk, looking at carrying some of the Maple Street style and character with the extending that to this area of the project, looking at the train depot plaza. Some of these things were already defined and were already in the works with the city. Some of them are proposed and new improvements. And then looking at additional interpretive signage and educational programs. So what you see in front of you here is part of the feedback from all these tools that we utilized. If you notice, the first vertical is the SMS survey, and then looking at the staff workshop, the stakeholder interviews, and so on. This does not mean that one person voted for it. It means it was identified as a priority within that. You'll see a weighting here, and the weighting is all the workshop results got essentially 1, and the survey, because of its statistical validity, received a double weighting, so we've characterized that as 2. So some of the key pieces that were identified is tot lot expansion, looking at the 2 to 5 year old, looking at the shaded picnic areas, some sports courts, and so on, an art program, upgrading the restrooms. There was a lot of comments about safety, continued to be a lot of comments about safety. And then there was, frankly, some comments that were outside specifically the purview of the master plan, but it talked about, safe crossings and things that are really off-site programs, but still influence the project. So those things have been listed as well. Talked about dog areas, the Heritage Walk, and some of those other pieces. And you can see the list goes on. We've broken it down into 2 slides here to capture all of the information.
And a lot of these programs that are identified in this list were part of that original 2015 plan. So we listed every single thing that original plan had in there, and we wanted to validate it with the needs of the community today and see what was really a priority and what wasn't. So that leads us into our updated master plan. So really what we're trying to understand is, through all that outreach and the original master plan, how can we start to organize this park into something that's a little bit more understandable as a user? So we really looked at what we have existing, and we kind of created these districts. So up top we have the aquatics area that will be part of the master plan. We have the arts buildings with the CCAE, and then we really look at the historic area and how can we start to enhance this relationship with the others. And then obviously with the great green and playground areas. So here we have our master plan. A lot of this is similar to that original 2015 plan. So items that we've called out specifically are enhancements as well.
This actually includes things that were already underway by the city. As an example is the restroom addition, the train depot plaza pad in front, the connection for the food trucks and bringing the food truck areas within the park. So some of those things were already part of things that the city was already engaged in and had moved forward with. Those things were added. And then the additional amenities based on the priorities that have been provided, including those into the master plan as well. So it's both of those pieces, the existing, the things that are already underway, and then the new proposed elements.
So really focusing on that historic district, how are we building that relationship through the rest of the park, and how are we enhancing it? So the first one, this line that's highlighted in red, we want to create a new entryway. And now when we propose this is a master plan. We wanted to reiterate that we're not proposing what this entryway is. We're just saying this should be a free feature and a priority for this master plan. So any future development that comes out of this will still have to go through you and the city for processing and validation.
So we're at 10,000 feet. We haven't gotten to the ground level yet to understand exactly the specifics of the design components.
So also in here, this is kind of our entry plaza for the historic district. So the original 2015 plan was showing the women's building located here. We looked at that through our community analysis, and that wasn't as high as a priority. It could still happen in the future. But that was part of our design strategy, was to create this bigger entry and more street frontage to the historic center.
A defined entry point into the project, really creating an entry plaza there and something that starts to provide wayfinding and identification for the area.
It's also adaptable so that if the building does move here in the future, we're not creating this huge structure that needs to be removed. But it is a plaza that can, support events for highlighting more of the education and the history of Escondido. We also wanted to upgrade the Heritage Walk. So part of the feedback we heard was really to start to create something more cohesive throughout the city. So you have Maple Street Plaza, and we want to tie into those materials and start to create some of that iconic identity for Escondido. So that would upgrade that. It would include all the plaques and memorials, and then we've also kind of highlighted here on the southern side of that walk that we would start to organize all of those memorial benches and benches that were dedicated throughout the city, or through history. And finally, we're looking at ways that we can tell the story a little bit more about the history. So updating the fencing around the buildings as well as along the creek, having some sort of artistic interpretations that can really help define that and tell the story a little bit more.
So we can back up, we can move forward, anything you guys like, but open it to you for any questions.
While it's fresh in my mind, you just brought up fencing around the buildings there. I know that security is a big problem with all of those buildings, especially the Victorian home. Is this going to be a secure fence? I mean, I want it decorative, but I want it secure because I think as much as I want it to look historic, I want it to keep people that don't belong in there out. The other question I had was, and I know that this is not in our purview, but as far as the budget on this, you don't take the budget to the council. They determine what's going to be spent on this, or
This is identification of the master plan components. This is not a budget-specific piece. So once the projects are identified that they move forward with, then there's development of the program, the design, and the budgets, and all of those pieces.
And the reason I ask is because I know that there's a lot of maintenance that needs to be put into some of these historic buildings, and I would like to see that tied into the master plan just to guarantee that it gets done. A lot of the things that, I'll be honest with you, anything historic here, it just gets kicked down the road until it looks like it's going to fall apart, and then it gets paved over. And I want that section of the park. This is the most historic thing we have in Escondido, and it's our foundation for the city. I don't want to see it take second place to anything else. The history of Escondido is lined up in those 4 buildings right now, so I think we need to make that priority as far as even when it comes down to advertising the park, historic Great Day Park.
So, and to be clear, we're not proposing additional fencing or anything around the specific structures, correct?
Correct. This would be upgraded fencing that would be definitely secure, but it could also incorporate some artistic elements.
Yeah, so we're talking about the entry plaza and the creek side. We're not talking about fencing directly around the structures, correct?
Not currently.
Yeah.
If that's something that we want to upgrade as well.
Well, I think it ought to be part of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. This was a really great presentation. Thank you so much. I know that we're sort of at the ladder of the timeline. I'm really curious about the feedback that you received around utilization, sort of experience of folks that use Great Day Park. I generally run on that heritage walk that we're naming here, and I'm a new resident, so I just want to share, right? New resident, new commissioner. But one of the things that I've noticed while running in that area, and it's a wonderful space. It's a combination of buildings and of course greenery. And I'm super supportive of the blacksmith, sort of like what it has to offer in the history, but I'm concerned about air quality. And because sort of all the fumes that come out from that building and seeing so many children in that space, I'm just wondering if there was any discussions related to air quality, especially in these spaces where children are often playing and a lot of us are spending time doing recreational activities. I'm not sure if that was a discussion, but that was honestly a recent observation of mine in the last few months, and it's interesting that this is even now in discussion.
The analysis of the air quality piece of this wasn't part of the master plan specifically. I think some of the adjacencies are probably important to consider, like you're suggesting. The master plan, again, since this is an update to the master plan, a lot of those amenities currently exist around that area with the tot lot, so we are enhancing that and adding components to that, but we didn't look specifically at things like air quality as it might relate to the project itself. As projects get developed, they go through a CEQA process, and those CEQA processes address some of those things like air quality and carbon emissions and trip counts and all of those kinds of things. So as the projects move forward, if it's within the context of the CEQA requirements, then I would assume that they would look at those pieces as well. I don't know if I answered your question fully or not, hopefully.
No. And I'm new, right? I'm not sure what stage we are in the project. So for me as a resident, as someone who's like obviously representing this council, I understand our priorities around historical preservation, but also as a concerned resident, air quality is something that I'm seeing with some of the possible changes that we want to do in the future. So I just want to amplify that as this project moves along.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Appreciate your time.
Does anybody in the audience want to talk about this?
You want us to stay, or you want us to?
You can go ahead. I think we're done. Thank you. Yes, please. Did you fill out a speaker form by any chance? Okay, when you get done, if you would fill out one of those yellow slips.
Yes, I do understand the process somewhat. First of all, I would very much like to thank you, Commissioner, the Chair, for your comments on the importance of Grape Day Park, the History Center, and what we've created here. And my name is June Rady. I'm born and raised here, fourth generation here. My grandmother was married here in 1908, and she married the foreman of the Los Penasquitos Ranch. So our history in Escondido is deep. And the people who grew up here love this place. And most of my board, I'm currently the president of the Escondido History Center. And we have a memorandum of understanding with the city where our History Center manages the museum that you were just referring to. And yes, the deterioration that is going on over there is, well, Danielle is aware of it. The city has been very good about meeting with us and trying to solve many of the problems we have. The Victorian in particular has been in a deteriorated state for at least 10, maybe 15 years. And of course, when we were advised about the new master plan, or the master plans being updated, our board also was very concerned about the lack of discussion and priority being placed on funding to renovate what is deteriorating over there, which is almost every building. The History Center does not receive money from the city to operate our program over there. We are subsidized by the city, and we appreciate that very much. In other words, they take care of the park, of course, which we're part of. They help us a great deal, and there is a budget item for that in the current budget, or at least the last time I examined the budget. But we just recently had a presentation on the master plan update. I have not, nor has our board, had an opportunity to speak with the consultants. I was just made aware of them in a meeting with Danielle, which was held, I think, last week, Danielle. And our board has been discussing it. Danielle came to our meeting and did present this. We have a great many concerns that I don't need to necessarily present to you now. I can answer your questions, but particularly about the food truck pads and the proposed stages. And I can explain that if you're interested right now. I don't know whether the process tonight, is the agenda, is this on for your action today?
It was just an overview of the new
Okay,
master
okay.
plan.
Then I'll be happy just to keep it to that.
Okay,
The overview.
and I understand your concern, because some of these meetings, you find out about it, when too late. But I would definitely take to the board and review it, because you certainly have time to still submit some comments. A lot of this is, the master plan doesn't mean it's going to get done immediately or done like this, but your questions certainly do carry some weight as far as the timeline and the food trucks and how will it affect the historic aspect of the park. But I don't foresee it being a problem, and I don't foresee it being a problem to get your comments on record even, just.
Right, thank you. Well, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but I did want to, when Danielle was explaining and answering some of our questions, she mentioned you were having this meeting and it was going to be presented, and that invited me to come. And I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Grape Day Park was established in 1913. It is very important to our community as a whole. I think I can only think of one or two other cities that have downtown parks. It is such an attraction to new people who want to settle here and raise their families here. We also, of course, as you all know, have the recreational parks in our peripheral with Kit Carson Park, of course, and those of you that were here remember the difficult negotiations and votes we went through to establish the North County Fair area, but preserve much of Kit Carson Park for youth sports, etc. And then, of course, the park out off of Citrus, I'm losing the name of it right now, which also has a lot of youth sports out, the Mountain View, yes. And we have, the History Center is also involved with that adjacent property, which houses the field, Elmer Field Home. There's a home and a barn out there, and we're trying to work long-term on restoring that to the history and actually making that area an exhibit of the agricultural history of Escondido, which that's exactly how we started. And but regarding the master plan and this particular proposal to, we had been discussing with the former city manager. We have proposed to extend the train depot deck rather than laying a slab and putting a stage in front of that deck. That, in my opinion, would be an architectural disaster, and the former city manager was very interested in just extending that deck for a stage purposes.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you off here. We are only looking at, this is an overview. We don't really have any say as far as what went into this and what they're talking, where that's going.
Okay.
You might be better off to take your comments to the Planning Commission meeting. I think they have a little bit more weight in those matters. Yes.
Yes, and thank you. I do appreciate that comment. I just, when I was told that you all were going to hear this, I wanted to make sure that you were taking into consideration the history of the park and how important it is to maintain.
We value the History Center there and their opinion, because they've been around for a long time. We've all had some interaction with them at some point.
Yes, and we have a community board that's very dedicated to maintaining what we have and yet being flexible in areas of creating activities for the community there. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. So this doesn't require any action other than receive it? Okay.
Correct.
We are going to move on to our final project here for the Historic Preservation Awards coming up. And I don't know why, but every year it's like, oh my gosh, why haven't we been thinking about this? I drove around today not having any thoughts on it, but I did come up with a couple of things. I hope somebody else has some thoughts. Okay, I'm just going to throw these out.
Commissioner Span, I'm on this side every time.
No.
I believe that Ivan has a couple of slides that he put together here, so.
Good. Go ahead. I didn't know there was a presentation.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it took me a while to bring it up. It'll be quick, though. Thank you, Chairman Span. I'll be presenting on item H6, which is nominations for the Historic Preservation Awards. Just for some background, as far as back as 2003, at least that's what I was able to find, the city has hosted yearly Historic Preservation Awards. The Historic Preservation Awards is an opportunity to recognize property owners as good stewards of their historic preservation through the maintenance of their properties. The Historic Preservation Commission is responsible for nominating properties to be recognized by the City Council during a meeting in May. And here are some examples from the recipients for awards in the past. This was one of the 2019's award recipients. This is known as the Larzalier House and is resource number 175. Honored property owners Dennis and Karen Ortman. This structure was built in 1897 and it is my understanding was actually moved through the city to get to this location. In 2021, the commission decided to do a theme of religious institutions. And so these are some of the nominees. This one is the First United Methodist Church at 341 South Comia Street. And here we have the First Church of Christ Scientist at 440 South Broadway. At this meeting, staff recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission nominate 3 properties to be recognized by the City Council in May. Alternatively, the Commission may authorize a subcommittee to discuss and propose properties for recognition by the City Council. As discussed in the staff report, we have done themes in the past, but it's not a requirement. And so I'll turn it back to you guys.
Thank you. At some point, it would be helpful to have a list of all the awards we've given out, because in thinking about the places that I would nominate, it seems like a lot of them we've given awards to in the past, and a lot of them have new owners. So, you know, the new owners are responsible for the maintenance. The year we did the churches, the worship centers, we gave all of them. I think that was the final result, because it seems like we had 5 that were all historic and outstanding in architecture. Is that your recollection?
I believe there were 6 nominees. I wasn't able to do that much of a deep dive into it, but I do know that there was approximately 5 or 6 nominees.
Okay. What happens when we give that many awards out? We run out of potential nominations. Well, real quick, 439 East 5th, the Stewart House. There's a lot of history in that, but it seems like we might have given them an award before. I don't know, but the new owners have done a lot to keep it up and to follow through with preservation. And across the street from that, 438 East 5th. I don't know what kind of construction you call it. It's really unique. It's kind of got a rounded front, rounded roof. Now, I do know that house was fixed up to sell, so you can't really say give credit to the new owners for the way that looks. I'd like to see them continue to maintain it, because it was in a horrible state of disrepair before that. Another one that is the old Center City High School at 240 Maple. John Paul the Great University owns it, but they've been really good about keeping the outside of that original. I know that their potential plans for that building will maintain the historic integrity. And a lot of times I look at this award as kind of a carrot in front of the owner's face, wow, we got an award for this, we need to keep this up. So it's sort of twofold as far as rewarding somebody for what they've done and encouraging them to continue to keep it up. Those were just a couple of thoughts that I had. There's a lot of places around that are worthy of an award, but I kind of like to look at it as far as the potential in a building, the award, and also not such the grandeur. The place on Citrus that you showed us a picture of, that's right around the corner from me, and I drive by that all the time. So when that possibility came up, I nominated that one. But that thing is fabulous. It's like we have those kind of houses, and then we have the houses that the average people live in, and they do keep them up, and I want to see them get recognized too. So I guess if we're going to have any kind of a theme, it would be, different, not all in the same, like historic commercial building, residence, and just to throw a little diversity into it.
So, if I remember in the past, we can't really go into subcommittees because we can't meet because it's a violation of the Brown Act, right?
You can meet as a subcommittee as long as it's less than 3 members of the
Okay,
body.
so 2 people. Are we able to, like, what I would propose is, and I don't know what the timelines are, so just correct me at whatever point. Like, when do we have to have the nominations in by?
So the awards will likely be at a meeting probably towards the end of May. I don't remember what the meeting schedules there are. I think there's one on the 17th or the 24th, if you can look at that, Zach, for me.
Yeah, it looks like the 24th is our last meeting in May.
Okay, so that's probably where we'll aim for. We'll have to know likely before the May meeting what we're doing. In the staff report that we put together, there was some information that we could look at. You could look at forming a subcommittee today and authorize that subcommittee to round out the nominations. You would have to basically have faith in that subcommittee that they're going to put forward nominations that you would find appropriate. It's up to you, or if you come up with anything today. Also, let me just look. I want to take a look and see when the May HPC meeting is compared to that.
May 18th.
May 18th.
So what I would propose, if everyone's agreeable to it, is because I would love to include every member up here's voice. It would be that if the 5 of us, and there's a 6th that's not here, right?
Correct.
And if you could tell the 6 of us go out and find maybe 5 homes that we like, that are like, man, we love those homes. Like, for whatever reason, on our own, find 6 homes. In the next, I don't know, by April 1st, we email you guys those addresses and go, these are the ones that I like, these are the ones that you like, et cetera. And then we, as a staff or as a board, vote on like 3 of them that we love. Like, that way, all of our voices are heard. We all get to go out and thoughtfully look at properties, send them in, and go from there. Do we have time to make that happen? And can we, via email, communicate like that on this off the meeting?
So you can communicate through staff. So if you would be looking at sending potential options through staff, and then we could kind of compile something and say, hey, this is what the consensus at large, or the if issues or numbers and addresses we got at large are, and for the subcommittee to take a look at those. It wouldn't reference any specific commissioner having identified any specific location, but it would give that opportunity, I think.
Yeah, I just think it'd be great to hear everyone's voice. Like, you're going to pick houses different than me, right?
We already know mine.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that too. I think 3 is enough for each of us.
Yeah, that's
though.
fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, if everybody picks 3 houses and just mail them to,
Mail them to Zach.
Yeah, just email them to myself, and then I'll.
So, like, by April 1st, right? 2 weeks, is that good for everybody?
yeah, no later than that.
Would you like to include just a few, like, I like this because, just so there's a little, maybe a backstory that when it comes through on here, we're
Sure.
reading that
If you want to.
versus in the meeting?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, include as much detail as you want. I'll compile it all and I'll distribute it to the rest of everyone.
We'll need to have voted and agreed on what those 3 are before the 18th, or would we do that on the 18th?
So you could do it doing it on the 18th, we could technically do that and have it on the agenda, but it would just require much more of a staff report, depending upon, I don't know, as it pertains to how much background is given. Adam, I haven't participated in the HPC awards before.
Sure. So in the past, we've usually done a proclamation from the mayor or council proclaiming May to be Historic Preservation Month in the city of Escondido. And then in conjunction with that, the council or the mayor, whoever is actually at the or at the podium here, would be presenting awards to the property owners.
On the 18th?
Yeah.
No, at the city council meeting on the 24th.
Yeah, so the only challenge I would see with timing is contacting and notifying the property owners that they would be available. So one alternative would be if all the commissioners provide their feedback to myself, and if there is a subcommittee established, I could then provide those findings to the subcommittee, and if the subcommittee approved it, then we could technically invite the property owners to the
Or
meeting.
couldn't we just collectively, you get all 18 properties, you send it out to all 6 of us, we all give you the feedback on the 3 that we would pick out of the 18, and we're done long before that? Just to give everyone a vote?
I think we could do that. I just want to make sure Brown Act wise, because I want to make sure it's not officially a vote. But yeah, I could find a creative way to do that.
Just to
Let's
get-
call it recommendation.
Recommendation. Yeah, there you go.
Just to try to hear everyone's voice.
Yeah,
Like,
most
especially
definitely.
the newer people to the
Most definitely.
commission.
Oh, and that brings up a good point. It doesn't have to be in the historic district. As long as it's anywhere in the city, it's not eligible.
Yeah, thank you for the recommendation. I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm also interested in hearing how we've promoted sort of these awards in the past. Maybe staff can give us some details either today or in the following meeting. I think I go back to like, how are we increasing awareness of like historical preservation, and are we maximizing the opportunities that we've been doing, in the past and maybe this year? And so I don't know, it'd be helpful to just kind of hear like, how are we promoting that beyond this physical space and whoever is actually here?
Sure. Let me look and get some kind of background info so I can have something for you next meeting.
Perfect.
Yeah, on that realm, I mean, that would be something great for I don't know who's managing the city Instagram profile. And I mean, they've been really great and active lately of talking about businesses and just anything about town. But that would be nice probably to have a picture of the building and a little about the person.
Yeah, once the
Where's
awards
that?
have been selected, it's Teresa Collins and Michael Thorne, who are staff members who oversee the social media for the city. I can inform them of the different locations that have been selected, and they could do their best to promote them. I think that'd be feasible. Yeah, for sure.
So I think that wraps up that issue. Seeing nobody in the audience for oral communication, any commissioner comments? Oh, I had one. Whoever did this packet did an outstanding job. It's like a novel. I mean, it is so complete and concise. There's everything plus some that you could ask for. But if I could just request that it's available in hard copy, like the Friday before the meeting, because this was a lot to take in quickly and try to absorb. So, but I do appreciate being able to pick it up at the desk.
Leave it here for recycling?
Sure. Yeah.
I have a comment as well. Thank you again this was great. This was really wonderful. So as a new member and trying to figure out my own personal understanding of historical preservation beyond kind of what we're doing now, I'm really interested in exploring just generally the resources we have available to our commission, meaning do we have any monetary resources assigned to our commission? B, in the past, have we collected any interest from city council and like the community at large around what's their understanding of historical preservation? Because I feel like I personally think we can maybe do a better job of just even for myself, doing that, sort of deepening that understanding and really coming at it from gaining this information and figuring out what do we have available. Our staff is already doing an incredible job, but beyond what we're doing now, what staff time would we have available if we wanted to do something new? I want to be sensitive to just even the availability of staff, just to make sure that we're be cognizant of each other's time and resources, et cetera. Those are honestly requests for information, and I would love to have a conversation with the rest of y'all in the future on what else can we do as we continue to just further engage in this type of work.
My comment would be the best thing you can do for historic preservation is talk it up, because it's a one-on-one thing. You talk to anybody on the street, and they're going to have one of two views. I could care less about historic preservation, or I'm all behind it. There's really nothing in the middle.
I'm against it.
Or, yeah, I'm against it. People that don't appreciate history and don't appreciate where we've been don't have any interest in preservation. I would suggest, have you been over to the History Center yet, to their office there, and looked around, and to the Pioneer Room? That is like it's kind of, everything is hidden gems, but if you start digging and pulling it out, they got the old phone book, so you can pull a phone book from 1900 and see all 20 people that had a telephone, their numbers, and it's interesting just to get into that aspect of it. The more you know about Escondido, the more historic value it has.
Are they doing the Mother's Day thing this year?
Yeah, the Mother's Day tour is going to be on Saturday before Mother's Day.
So you should definitely go on the Mother's Day tour.
It's an absolute, you've got to go on that. I mean, that gets you into houses that you typically drive by and you wonder, gee, I wonder what that looks like on the inside. And it does open up a whole new world, that this is how you can take these old structures and make them livable now. And you learn how to live with very smaller areas and more efficient areas than huge rambling houses.
And the Adobe Home Tour is not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, and that's great to go on to.
And that's a whole nother aspect of history.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm excited to go on these things. But honestly, when I think of historic preservation, I don't think just homes or architecture. And so I feel like I have a self-interest of even expanding that definition for myself. And I'm curious if we all, what our interests are, and wanting to understand just generally what else people think about how historical preservation could look like, feel like, sound like, et cetera, right?
Well, just the basics. This commission is primarily responsible. Our primary responsibility is to take care of the Mills Act, to nominate homes to go on the Mills Act, then the council okays it, and then it goes to the county. And then to keep up with their 10 improvements. That's the primary role, but there are other things, of course, that come into it. Architectural design, if it's a contributor, if it's in the historic district, it's a contributor, whether it was built yesterday or not. But you
Chair
have to be flexible.
If I may, I think we should probably agendize something like this discussion for a future meeting. This has kind of gone a little bit deep into something that's not on our agenda. So I think doing that and putting this on an agenda for the next meeting, hopefully, would be a way to have a more extensive dialogue on goals, roles, et cetera, and what people see as things that we should be focusing on as historic preservation.
So that's on the agenda now then? It will be.
Sure.
Could be a whole meeting.
I'll mention really quick, because we used to have a lot of access to trainings, and I think maybe that would be beneficial so if there's opportunities that pop up, if you guys could let us know. I haven't seen those in a while.
Yeah, it's budgetary issues have kind of shrunk that ability, but we'll see if there's anything out there.
So our budget is mainly paper. It's not time.
That's why we're even trying to get rid of that.
I shared some previous training classes with the previous planner, but yeah, he never came back with anything.
And do you remember, I sent a link to a few trainings online a couple months ago. I can send it back to you guys, but there's a few online, and there's also one that you can go to, but there is a cost associated with it, which is the unfortunate thing. But I'll send it out again. So
You know, some of those, the ones that carry a cost, I know Paul used to get them, and the city only paid $50 or $100 for it, and they could record it. Then we came down to in the conference room and watched it, and that was the most efficient way of getting training that we are supposed to have when we turn in our reports. So the next time something like that comes up, you can cry a little bit, and they get a better price.
We'll keep our eyes out.
So then I guess we are adjourned.